Democrats acted on this. Joining me here is Republican Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee and Republican Congressman Duffy of Wisconsin. And, you know, Congressman Duffy, I know that you went back and forth on this, but you eventually decided to go forward and vote to pass this.
I did. Well, first of all, I was concerned about the authority that we give the president. I was concerned whether he was going to abide by the guidelines that we put in the TPA authority. I work closely with Paul Ryan, another Wisconsinite, and I want to make sure that we have guidelines in there on any kind of carbon deal the president might cut, any kind of trade, not trade, but any kind of immigration the president might cut. Once I felt comfortable with the language inside of TPA and my work with Paul Ryan, I went from an undecided to a yes on the bill, because I think, listen, trade is good for America. Trade is good for my district, and it'll help grow our economy, better paying jobs, dairy, forest products, cranberries, all good stuff. Well,
what you're talking about is true, but let me tell you, I mean, sometimes it can be hard to sell out there because people feel like if I vote for free trade, or if my congresswoman votes for free trade, does that mean that my job is at risk? What do you tell people, Congresswoman?
Well, what I do is point to the statistics from Tennessee. We rank 16th overall in the country for trade. 11.1% of all Tennessee jobs are trade related. And it's important that we keep those 829,000 jobs robust and growing. Wouldn't it be great if we had 1 million jobs? If we grew jobs in our state because of the exports. We primarily export in medical products, automobiles, and then your vehicle parts. Those are the main components that we export. And Trish, the thing is, people in my state have watched this grow. They watch the ag product markets grow. And when it comes to having the ability to negotiate and look at a trade agreement, they like for us to have more input, not less. And that's what the TPA does. It allows Congress to have an on-off switch for trade, and basically it turns fast track into slow track.
Well, Congressman Duffy, you know, all of that said, you know, people feel under pressure right now. Wages, they really haven't budged in 20 years. We've seen a lot of our jobs that were once sort of the manufacturing base here get shipped overseas. Are you getting any pushback from your district?
Actually, I had a lot of support from industry in Wisconsin for this ability for the president to negotiate, because most of them understand that if you have more markets open to our Wisconsin products and American products, that means more jobs and higher wages for people back at home. One of the problems as we've gone through this as Republicans is a lot of the misinformation that's been put out there. They're confusing the actual trade deal, TPP, with the authority, which is TPA. And they go, well, there's a secret deal and it hasn't been looked at and we haven't seen it and you haven't seen it. That's not what's on the table today. What's on the table is the authority and the guidelines for the president to negotiate.
Let me ask you about the assistance.
Which is a 114-page bill.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
You know, it's not
we'll
a
look
big
forward
deal.
to reading that this weekend.
That's right.
But you know, when you think about the politics of it, economics aside, it was a little strange how this all unfolded, because you would think that Democrats would want the assistance there, the money there to enable people to get the training if their job were to move overseas. It seemed a little bit like they were cutting off their nose to spite their faces.
That's precisely what
was
happened.
going on.
What they did was to say, oh, if we take down TAA, which is the assistance, then we'll be able to take down TPA, which in essence will end TPP and TTIP, the European deal.
Acronyms.
I know, all these acronyms, these T words, and that did not work out. So what they have done, TPA, as you said, has gone back to the Senate without the assistance component attached to it because they voted against that.
So can I say, the future of trade right now sits in the hands of Barack Obama. Is he a lame duck president? Does he have any sway over the Democrat caucus? Can he get them in the Senate to vote yes on TPA with the assurance that TAA will come back separately, and will they then support it? But he's also indicated that he is not going to sign TPA without TAA there as well.
What do you think? What's your instinct?
Well, I think the thing is, you know, he has worked to get this authority, and bear in mind, TPP started under George W. Bush, and we're trying to push forward a framework for trade agreements. Now, they may get another vote on TAA, and it is yet to be seen if the president can rally his side to go for the part of trade that they liked and if they will agree that opening up these markets increases jobs and wages.
Here's what I'm concerned about. Let me just jump in for a minute. I mean, we've talked about the economics of it. We've talked about the politics of it. What about the national security aspect of it? It's something that doesn't come up a lot, but you know,
the geopolitical
China's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the reality is they've already overtaken us. They overtook us in December 2014 as the world's largest economy, not per capita, but in terms of overall size and economic output. Do we need to be the leader overseas there in trade so that we don't lose that position?
Absolutely. We need those relationships. We need them with our allies. We need those for the geopolitical influence of this. We want these countries to be trading with us, and we want to be exporting our products to them. It's good for us and it's good for them.
If it's not us, it will be China. And you see this global struggle going on right now. Let's make sure that America fills the space, trading with all these other countries. And if it's not us, again, it's going to be China and Russia. And that's bad for America. That's bad for American security.
I mean, that's that Eurasia dream that Vladimir Putin is thinking about at night.
And Putin is very aggressive right now. And Russia is partnering with China on so many things, whether it's cyber, whether it's telecommunications equipment. So no, let's step in here. Let's create these agreements and let's build these friendships in order to help protect our national security and our economic security.
I think what this comes back to, though, is to get this done on the trade side, the job side, and on the security side, it comes down to, can the president come and sell Democrats, which I mentioned? We saw him come for one of the first times to the Hill. I mean, usually our relationships are built over a period of 6 years with the president. He doesn't have those relationships right now, which means, you know, it's a big news story when he comes with his motorcade.
Or comes to the ball game.
And after that meeting, you saw Nancy Pelosi go to the floor and rail against him and work against him. The question now becomes, how much of a lame duck is he? Can he sway the Democrats? And if he does, this is going to be great for America, great for jobs, and great for our security.
So, you know, sometimes it comes down to politics, right? There's an art to what all of you do.
And a science.
And trust. You got to trust people, work with people. And that's been broken with this president.
Before, you know, he plays enough golf. You'd think he could cash in on some of those relationships he might have but didn't develop. Anyway, Congressman Blackburn and Congressman Duffy, so good to have you guys here. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Trish.
All right, stocks on the rise today here.